These are the Cairngorm Mountains, so it's no new feat. So 100 miles through the Cairngorms must be pretty hard, right? Yeah. Actually, no, it's not really that hard. It's not as hard as running 100 miles. Actually, in my experience, the really hard bit was getting there. So I'm going to go back to the beginning. I was raised by wolves. I had a very sort of middle class upbringing and lived in the country with lots of animals and things. But I'm the youngest by about 10 years. And my mum says I was a surprise. I think I was actually a mistake. But anyway, you couldn't really get abortions in those days, so I came along. And she basically, I think she'd sort of given up on parenting by those days. So she sort of palmed me off on a series of farm animals and sort of left them to look after me. And it was sort of, when she put me on a horse for the first time, she realised she was on to a real winner. This is me, I think, on my first day off the lead rein. So I'm like, I think I've got it now, Mum. She's like, wait, I'm just going to put the tea on, I'll be back in a couple of hours. And I basically just, from then on, spent my whole life sat on the back of a pony. And it was a bit of a win-win, really, because I had this kind of amazing freedom and independence that my friends didn't have. So I was the youngest at Pony Club Camp when I was 6. I was riding out, hacking out on my own when I was 7, and by the time I was 8, I was going out hunting with a hip glass full of port. That is not another story about my mum's parenting style we won't go into. But I did get lucky. I got really lucky, and I got this fantastic pony who was very naughty and very cheeky, but loved to charge about and loved to gallop. And we got pretty good at our dressage one day eventing, and we won a couple of competitions. And it got to the stage where the Pony Club instructor came over and had a quiet word in my mum's ear one day, and she said, you know, Susie's doing quite well, and you know, she's getting a bit older now. Isn't it time she moved on to horses? You know, you could sell Scarlet and get a bigger horse, and she'll really progress. And I was like, sell Scarlet? I love Scarlet. She's my 14-hand pony, and I thought, what can I do? There must be a sport where adults ride 14-hand ponies, and that's sort of how I got into endurance. So we just, I think we were just hooked. We were addicted. We loved exploring and going out to these amazing places that we could only get to by doing endurance rides, and we just really loved it. And once we got started, somebody said, you might want to go to Cirencester. It's a fantastic ride. You can stay the whole weekend, and you can even have a go at a race ride. And I thought it sounded great, so off we went, but we didn't really know what we were doing. And I learned a few important things that weekend, because it was a young riders race, so we were all sort of teenagers in together. And we set off, and we were just having a brilliant time, and ponies were going great, and we were chatting and, I don't know, telling rude jokes, whatever it is you do when you're a teenager, and having a wonderful time. Until we rode straight past the vet gate, and we carried on. And we went for 3 or 4 miles before we realised that anything was wrong. And then we realised we had to go all the way back, and it was up a massive hill. And when we got there, we were lost. And there was a few tears and stamping of feet, and one of the older girls smoked a cigarette. And I just remember this sinking feeling in my stomach of thinking, my wonderful pony, who was so brave and so brilliant, and I've really let her down because she's had to do these extra miles, and she's had to go up this massive hill, and we're at the back. And I learned a lot about map reading and paying attention, but most importantly, about riding your own race and taking responsibility for your own decisions. But later on that day, after we'd had some dinner and we were getting ready to go to bed, somebody called us over and said, oh, you want to come over? The 100 milers are about to finish. And I thought, I don't know, 100 miles? That's a long way. We went over in the dark, and there were some stalls, and there was a finish line, and people had torches and stuff, and there was chattering going on. What's going on? And out of the darkness, this white horse came along, and it was ridden by a girl who was only a couple of years older than me. It was Emma Miller, who was Emma Froelich at the time. And they crossed the line, cantered across the line, and she jumped off and threw her arms around his neck, and she was so proud of him. And I thought, they've just finished 100 miles, and that's twice as far as I've gone today. And I was pretty impressed with myself. But that's incredible, and maybe one day that could be me. And for some reason that just stuck in my mind. And Scarlett and I had a really, really brilliant time. We did lots of 80Ks, which is, in the old days we used to call them 50 milers. And we even did a 75 miler. So we were lucky enough to go to the Young Riders European Championship, which was absolutely incredible. But we never did do 100 miles in a day. So I failed. I never really succeeded in that, partly because I didn't I learned a lot. I still had a lot of learning to do about nutrition and managing metabolics and things. And partly because I was too afraid, and I thought that 100 miles was really difficult, and it was for people who were a lot better than me, and for horses a lot better than mine, and it would be too hard, and I was too scared to enter. And we only tried it a couple of times, and both the times we tried, we failed. And eventually I was going off to university, and I really was too big to carry on riding a 14-hand pony, and so we had to call it a day with Scarlett, and we never really did it. But we had a fantastic time, and we had some really, really great experiences and met some really great people, and I learned so much from all the things that I did wrong. So I was going off to university, and it seemed like a good time to have a bit of a break, and enjoy university life. And then I decided to have a foal. That's crazy, right? Because foals are cute and everything. And so we put Scarlett to the stallion, and we came back, and the vet did the scan, and this is what we saw. And I sort of thought, this is my next endurance horse here. This is my homebred endurance horse. This is going to be this is going to have a whale of a time. It's going to be great. And he was pretty cute and funny, and he loves an audience. So yeah, he's fab. He's also pretty evil. He's quite evil. And I didn't know what I was doing, because I never had a foal before, and no one in my family had ever had a foal before. So we let him get away with blue murder. And he's the kind of horse that if you give him an inch, he will turn around and kick you in the head and gallop off. So he was pretty mean. And he put a few people in hospital. My mum, David, my husband, and me. And I think it was about this time, when I woke up after 5 hours of surgery, when they stitched my face back on, I sort of realised maybe I needed a bit of professional help.
What did he do there?
He threw me off, and I hit the top bar of a wooden poster rail fence, and I was, with a lot of force, just took the whole of that side of my face off. The surgeons did a fantastic job, but you can see the scar if you get close. So yeah, I knew I needed some professional help. Thankfully, the professional who I called in was brilliant, and in 3 weeks she took him from being totally unmanageable, terrifying and dangerous, to being quite calm, quite patient and somewhat manageable. And she did a brilliant job, but not only with him, with me, because she gave me a whole load of tools and a whole load of skills to deal with him and to go forward with him, because it took several years of really hard work to get him from this stage to being like a vaguely normal horse, which he kind of is now. But she did a really good job in that 3 weeks, but she wasn't going to get on board. So I had to do that. And a few weeks after my surgery, I had to get back on the horse. And I was scared. I was terrified. And I really didn't want to do it, but I knew I had two choices. I could give up on this horse, or I could get on and see what happened. And if you give up on a dangerous horse, that's the end, because you can't sell them, right? So I had to get on, and I did. And we were fine, and I had to take him home, and I had to do it, all over again every day. But the nerves were serious. And every time I got on, I was nervous. And many times I didn't want to go to the yard, and I thought, if I get on, I'm going to die, and all those stupid things that you think when you've got irrational fear. And I thought, I don't want to go down this bridleway because there might be a tractor there, and I don't want to go on the road because there might be a car there. But actually, every time I felt like that, I just made myself do it, and I made myself do the hardest thing. And after 6 months or so, I gradually got back, and I suppose after a year I was back to pretty much where I was before. And so I felt like I conquered my nerves, and I wanted to celebrate. And I guess a lot of people would celebrate maybe like a glass of wine, a slap-up meal, or even a weekend away. But this is how I celebrated.
This is the bloody toughest horse racing in the world.
Yeah, they're a real problem. Saddle's gone, horse is gone, this is gone. What do we do?
We've all got chafing in places where you shouldn't chafe.
This is probably the core suffering chapter really of the Derby.
Big strong.
An epic adventure.
Yeah, so I guess once you've ridden like 30 odd semi-wild Mongol ponies 600 miles across the middle of Mongolia, you kind of got your confidence back, right? I was okay with that. Actually, when I went to Mongolia, I sort of flew into Ulaanbaatar, and it's a really long flight, 16 hours, and I arrived and I didn't know where I was. And I was supposed to be going to meet all of the people who are in the Mongol Derby and have a curry with them. Only my flight was delayed, it took me a long time to get all my stuff. And I arrived in the middle of Mongolia, and for some reason, like, Google Maps accuracy of like the streets of Ulaanbaatar is not that accurate. So it took me a really long time to find the curry house. And by the time I got there, they'd basically finished, and they were all really drunk, and they were just going back to their hotel. So I got in a cab with this guy, and it turned out that he's the guy who organises the whole route of the Mongol Derby. Well, it was only the second year that it had ever been run, so I knew like a little bit from reading a few things about people that had done it before, but I didn't know a lot. And I thought, this is great, I'll get a bit of inside information. So I asked him, about the course, what's the course like this year? And he said, I think you're all, soft Westerners, so I've made it a lot harder this year. Good. So I said, do you think it's going to take any longer than this year? And he said, yeah, I think it's going to take us and the crew longer to clear up all the casualties after. So I think it could have been a bit more reassuring. I went back to my hotel and sort of like held up in a ball and rocked backwards and forwards. But in the end, it's obviously amazing. The Mongol Derby was just as amazing as you'd imagine it would be. In fact, sort of amazing, that's the thing. And we had a few scrapes. We got lost in the woods where there was a mountain lion, and we had to ride several hours across the desert, and then found that the well was locked and there was no water. One night we were sort of in between horse stations, and it got dark and the riding hours stopped, so we had to stop, and we were miles away from the horse station and miles away from any herding families. So we pretty much had to roll our sleeping bags out under the stars and tie the horses to a rock and really hope they would still be there in the morning. And they were, because this is taken from my bed, and those were our sleeping bags, and these are the horses still there. So it was a brilliant adventure. I learnt a bit about packing light. We only had 5 kilos to take for a week, and that included absolutely everything except for our water. I also learnt that you're a bit smelly when you don't wash or change your clothes for 7 days and you're running 14 hours a day. And I learnt a bit about fueling as well. So we had to drink a lot of river water while we were there. It was a bit disgusting, but it's a lot better than getting stopped and put on a drip, which is what happened to one of the riders. But don't take all of my tips on fueling, because I do get pretty much half of my calories from peanut butter, so that's probably not the top tip. So when I was in Mongolia, when I came back, I sort of got into running a bit. But not the fun kind of running, the kind where you sort of get wet and run through bogs and up hills, and it's fell running. We also go up and run up and down mountains a little bit, which it sounds really hard, but it's totally worth it for the amazing views. And this is me halfway up Helvellyn on about 15 miles into a 40-mile race that we did 4 days before Christmas last year. And I don't know if you can tell, but it's like pretty windy and cold up there. Oh yeah, you probably noticed that David popped up in these pictures. David's my husband, and I've got like a top tip for anybody endurance riders out there. It's a really good idea if you marry into money. I didn't. But second best, do what I did and marry someone who's incredibly patient, and also like a lot madder than you are. So this is David at his last race, and he ran 110 kilometres, which is 66 miles, and I was crew for him. So, he hasn't really got a leg to stand on if he doesn't want to come and crew for me. So I come back from Mongolia, and the running was going well, but I sort of had a horse that was basically still a bit of shit. And he was also quite short and fat and quite slow, so things weren't necessarily looking that brilliant. And he didn't go on a bloody box either. So for a whole year we just did weekend rides, because it took us a whole day on Friday to get him to go on the box. Our longest loading session was 5 hours, and I think it was probably like the stubbornness that got me through the 5-hour loading sessions that got me through those sort of wilderness years, because it was like one challenge after another, and you just felt like you dealt with something and then something else came along. And I just was so stubborn, I just wouldn't give up. And I'd like to say that it's because I sort of saw some kind of spark of ability in Rudi, and I thought one day he's going to be top endurance horse. But it really isn't. It's more like it's more like I was like a sculptor with a massive block of marble, and I felt like if I keep just chipping away over and over again, eventually I'm going to create something worthwhile. So it's just pure persistence. He does have some good features though, and this is something about Rudi that actually you really can't overestimate how important this is. And that is, he drinks like a fish, and he will eat anything you put in front of him at any time of the day or night, under any circumstances. And that is actually incredibly useful in an endurance course. The downside to that is you have a lot of wee and poo stops on a ride. It's hard to keep the speed up. But no, he does have that going for him. And I suppose after a little bit of time and persistence, he was starting to look like, starting to look a bit like a proper endurance horse. And then I saw this on Facebook, like I always am. And it seemed like some people in Scotland had come up with this idea of doing a Scottish tennis ride. So it's going to be a ride, which was an A to B route with the vet gates on course. And they wanted it to be remote and challenging. And they wanted it to be a real experience for riders and horses, and where people who completed it would feel a real sense of achievement for just having got round. So not a race, not a flat out FDI, done in 8 or 10 hours, around the same loop, completely opposite end of the spectrum to that. And I thought, well, this sounds sort of interesting. But it's, because they wanted 24 hours, they had to run it outside of circles, and circles of Scottish endurance riding clubs like EQB. So it's sort of independent, not under the auspices of Cirque. And a lot of people were interested, but there weren't that many people willing to actually line up and commit to actually riding it. So I had this in the back of my mind, thinking this is really what I want to do. It went a bit wrong. And one mistake at the beginning of 2014, we ended up with lameness that puts out for the rest of the season. And this isn't Rudi's x-rays, this is some random internet horse. But we had x-rays, we had MRIs and a lot, and it was very frustrating seeing everyone else going out and competing and being at home, and it made me wonder, is he the kind of horse that's just not going to be up to doing longer distances, and he's just going to have lameness issues and we're going to have to stick to shorter stuff. But I wasn't giving up yet, and I had that ride in the back of my mind, and I sent a couple of emails to the ride organisers to find out a bit more about it. And I got some slightly bizarre responses from a guy called Clive, one of which was this photo. And he said, this is a section we were thinking about for the route, but we decided not to include it maybe next year. I wasn't really sure whether to believe that, so I responded, really? Can you ride up there? And he said, people die up there, but it's very impressive if you like that kind of thing. Okay, this lot are clearly completely mad. It sounds just up the street. So, yeah, it seemed like a really good idea. And I really wanted to do this ride, but we had quite a lot of training and preparation to get there. Beginning of this year we did Royal Cranwell ride, and the photo really does not do justice to how cold and wet we got on the second day of that ride. But one of my theories is, it's good if you sort of experience everything worse in training than it's actually going to be on the day, because then on the day it seems easy, right? So this is perfect preparation for the Scottish Mountains, I thought. And then while some of you were off on the lovely going at the Norfolk ride, having a lovely time cantering about, I took a long, hilly ride around the Peak District. And this is just one of the sections that we did up the side of Jacob's Ladder onto the top of Kinder. And it sort of pretty much goes on like this for about 8 or 10 miles from that point on. So pretty tough, and it's a bit of a risk doing training like this because you can obviously end up with a lame horse at the end of the day. But if I was going to go to Scotland, I needed to train specifically for those mountains, and I needed to know that my horse could go on difficult terrain without getting lame. So that's what we did. And then finally we sort of got through all that, and we got packed and organised, and it was time to go. And it's only an 8-hour journey to Scotland, so that's fine. And as you're driving up the A9, you get this amazing sense as you're driving into the Cairngorms already of just this sort of incredible landscape. And I was really impressed. And I live in Huddersfield, so it's pretty hard to impress me. Oh yeah, also we did a 5-hour round trip the day before, no, 2 days before the ride, to go to Glasgow so that I could graduate from my master's degree, which involved stopping at a truck stop so I could have a shower in the latest truck stop showers, and get into my smart gear and then come back and vet the horse. So we were ready to go, and we had a fantastic ride briefing at Glenmore Ski Mountain Centre the night before the ride, and they talked us through the whole route, and they asked us, please could you ride in pairs or groups, because actually it's most of the course. And they gave us a spot tracker to wear, so that in the event of an emergency, somebody would be able to locate us, but thankfully we didn't need those. And they gave us a vet sheet, which was pretty much like a normal vet sheet, only they'd come up with some sort of scoring system, so they wanted the best condition award. There were no prizes, there was no first, second, third. They just wanted, You either complete or you don't. And those that complete will get the belt buckle, and they would have the best condition award. And so they wanted to score based on sort of metabolics on the vet sheet for the best condition award. So we had that on our vet sheets, but I sort of promptly ignored it and didn't really bother about it until the end. And so we were talking about the route and looking at the route and thinking about what was ahead, and just starting to feel, you know, really excited about the scale and nature of this ride that was ahead of us, but also a bit nervous about what we were going to have to do the next day. The ride started at 4 o'clock at first light. We had to get up at 2 to box over to the start. Oh, hang on, I'm going a little bit ahead of myself. This is the profile of the ride. So this gives you a little bit of an idea. So that's meters of ascent up the side, and this is the distance of the ride. Those of you that are eagle-eyed will have noticed there's a bit of a sting in the tail, and this was on most of our minds for most of the day. So the biggest ascent of the day is after mile 90. And then you've got this, which basically, I mean, it's just best if you just do it in the dark and close your eyes. Yeah, so 4 o'clock in the morning we had to start. And I don't know if you notice here, but the bit isn't strictly speaking Rudi's mouth in this photograph. This is what happens when you tap up in the dark and sort of stressed out, and Rudi's biting you, and it's a little bit confusing. I did put it in his mouth before we started the ride. Yeah, that's how it goes. And so rather than give you a blow-by-blow account of the route, I thought I would take you on a little sort of helicopter tour. Hopefully this works. I'm going to turn the voice down a little bit. This bit so that I can talk. So this is the route. Starting at Glenmore Lodge, it's a sort of bit of a village there, so you're in amongst a bit of human life, but you're very soon getting out into the forests and the moors. So we're going through this valley just as the sun's rising and out onto the moors. We had a little bit of a sort of detour here because there'd been such heavy rain the night before that the ford was unpassable. So we had to go round to a bridge. So that's 10 miles going through. There we go. This is a rather hair-raising river crossing, just first thing in the morning, especially when the horses are nice and fresh. And then out onto the open water, we have some fantastic views there. We sort of cross back and forth across the river several times going through that valley. It's really beautiful. That looks like mile 20 just as we come into the first vet gate here. And then you start to get off the beaten track. And up the valleys into the real mountains. It's one sort of long ascent up this valley. When you get to the lock here, it's really boggy. You've got some serious sort of wet ground to contend with, and then somebody just help us through some of the bogginess patches as well. And then we're coming down into the second vet gate at about 40 miles here. That's Balmoral, so we've been back into civilization a little bit, we're going around Balmoral Castle, and then the route takes us all through the Balmoral estate here, where the Queen keeps her hiding ponies. Coming across the bridge after the Balmoral car park where there were thousands of tourists all hopping up across their buses, and into the vet gate, the third vet gate, at about 50 miles, I suppose. Fantastic location, and that's where the 50-mile riders start from, so they do the second half of the route. And the 25 milers, and they do the very last section of the route. And then you do a sort of big lollipop around, and you can see the quoit here up on the right hand side. We'll come back over this later. So now you're past 50 miles, that's further than Rudi had ever done in the day before. And coming up to, this is the Linn of Dee, a big tourist attraction, really incredible sort of limestone cut through the river. And up the quoits you've got this really incredible climb and amazing views and some pretty incredible bogs to climb from at the top as well. And then a really sort of testing descent through sort of muddy and stony terrain through the woods there at the quoit. At about 60 miles, and then all the way around the top of the valley to work your way back down. And then you've got a nice section where you're sort of retracing your steps back towards the vet gate, and the vet gate is about 75 miles there. Back into the Balmoral estate. So now it's getting sort of past tea time, and it's starting to get dark, and there's some rain clouds gathering. This is me sort of live Facebooking, blowing photographs at about 8 o'clock at night. We've seen our cruise for the last time, and it's dark, and it's now raining. And this is the last checkpoint at 90 miles. So our cruise couldn't get there, it was completely inaccessible. And it's so inaccessible that even the Google helicopter can't get there because the map quality is terrible. Up that last hideous descent, and they put lights, solar lights, all the way up the side of the hill. It was amazing. And it was chucking it down with rain, and then this descent is just terrifying and mind-boggling at 2 o'clock in the morning, in the rain, in the dark, and our horses were amazing really, yeah. And that final run down into the finish line. These are the first two finishes, so they managed to get back in before it got dark, just as the rain was starting, so they timed it perfectly. That's the route. So yeah, it was an absolutely brilliant ride. Incredible location, incredible route. It was really well organised. They had fantastic vets who started vetting at 7 o'clock in the morning and didn't stop until gone 2 o'clock the following morning. And an amazing team of volunteers who were out there all day and all night, literally pulling out all the stops to keep us safe and look after us. And the guys who were at the last checkpoint, where I said the cruise couldn't get to because it was so inaccessible, it was dark, it was cold, it was raining, they had stressed and tired horses and riders, and they made us coffee and brought the horse food and water and looked after us. It was quite incredible actually. As you can see, it's just spectacular. Some really amazing views and a fantastic ride. Sally has done the Tevis, so she has quite a good experience going into this, and she's got some unusual approaches to endurance. She was fully kitted out with like a sponge and a bungee rope which dropped into puddles to sort of crew the horse as we went along, because there weren't many places where you could meet your crew, well there was none really. And she had like a folding bucket on the back of her saddle, which was great, but she did at one point try like and attach a whole bale of hay onto the front of the saddle. That didn't work out quite so well. But you know, ingenuity. This is to prove that you don't have to have an Arab to go and do some really fantastic endurance rides. This is a halflinger. Didn't actually do 100 miles. She did 75, but she looked absolutely fantastic all the way around. Really, really fit pony. And oh yeah, Rudi showing his specialist skill at the best condition judging. But he was busy stuffing his face, and some of the others just decided to have a sleep. So, yeah, if you want to go and have a go at the Cairngorm 100 next year, I would thoroughly recommend it. They've got a provisional date of the 24th of June. If you don't fancy a 100, they've got a 50 and a 25 miler as well. And I recommend just take a week and go and see how beautiful that part of Scotland is.